The birthday that changed everything. The champagne tower gleamed under the string lights we'd hung that morning. I'd spent 3 hours getting them just right, looping them through the pergola in my backyard until they created that perfect golden canopy. Everything had to be perfect for Mom's 60th birthday. The caterers had just set out the last of the appetizers, and guests were beginning to arrive, their laughter floating across the lawn like music. I stood at the edge of the patio, watching my mother hold court near the rose bushes, radiant in the silk dress I'd helped her pick out last month. She deserved this. After everything she'd been through, raising us alone after Dad died, working 2 jobs to keep us fed and clothed, never once complaining, she deserved one perfect day. "You outdid yourself, sis." I turned to find my sister Rachel approaching, wine glass already in hand, though the party had barely started. She looked stunning, as always. Where I'd inherited our father's practical build and unremarkable features, Rachel had gotten our mother's delicate bone structure and that effortless grace that made people stop and stare. Even now, at 32, she could walk into a room and command it. "Thanks," I said, accepting her one-armed hug. I wanted it to be special. It is. Very you. The way she said it made it sound like an insult wrapped in a compliment, but I pushed the feeling aside. Not today. Today was about Mom. The party swelled around us. Aunts and uncles, cousins I hadn't seen in years, Mom's book club friends, neighbors, people from the hospital where she'd worked as a nurse for 30 years. I moved through them all, making sure everyone had drinks, that the food kept coming, and that Mom was surrounded by love. This was my gift to her. Not just the party, but the work of holding it all together, making it seamless. By the time we gathered around the cake, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. Someone dimmed the lights. I lit the candles, 60 of them, because Mom had insisted she wasn't afraid of her age. The crowd began to sing, and I found myself getting choked up watching her face glow in the candlelight, tears of happiness streaming down her cheeks. She blew out the candles to thunderous applause. I was reaching for the knife to start cutting the cake when Rachel's voice rang out, clear and sharp enough to silence the crowd. "Wait, before we eat, I have something to say." I looked up, surprised. We hadn't planned any speeches. Rachel stood on the other side of the table, her wine glass raised, that familiar smile playing at her lips, the one that had always made me nervous, even as children. "Go ahead, honey," Mom said, still beaming. Rachel's smile widened. "I think it's time everyone knew the truth about our family, about why things are the way they are." The collective gasp seemed to suck all the oxygen from the yard. I stared at her, my mind spinning. Pregnant? At 16? How had I not known? I would have been 13, old enough to notice, wouldn't I? "I was terrified," Rachel continued, her voice carrying that practiced tremor she'd always been able to summon. "I didn't know what to do, but our mother," she gestured to Mom, whose face had gone ashen. "Our wonderful, devoted mother, she helped me. She paid for me to go away for a while, to have the baby in private, to give it up for adoption." The silence was suffocating. I looked at Mom, whose hands were clutching the edge of the table so hard her knuckles had gone white. "And do you know where that money came from?" Rachel's eyes swept the crowd before landing on me. "From the college fund Dad left, the one that was supposed to be split between Megan and me." My college fund, the one I'd used to get through state school while working 3 jobs, the one that had been significantly smaller than expected, explained away as Dad not having saved as much as we'd thought. Mom took Megan's portion, $30,000, and used it for my problem. And Megan never knew. Rachel took a long sip of wine, till now. The world tilted. Around me, I could feel the weight of everyone's stares, their pity, their shock. Someone whispered to someone else. My cousin Lisa had her hand over her mouth. Uncle Tom looked like he wanted to disappear into the ground. Mom's voice cracked when she finally spoke. "Rachel, please." "I'm not done." Rachel's eyes were bright now, feverish. You see, I've carried this guilt for 16 years, knowing that my sister sacrificed her future for my mistake, even if she didn't know it. Watching her struggle through college, working herself to exhaustion, taking out loans, I got to pretend it never happened. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. $30,000. The difference between graduating with manageable debt and the crushing burden I'd carried for the past decade. The difference between the opportunities I'd had to decline and the life I might have lived. But I want to make it right. Rachel set down her wine glass with a sharp click. Megan deserves compensation. She deserves to be repaid for what was stolen from her. Stolen. The word echoed in my head. With interest, with the opportunities she lost, with the stress and hardship she endured. Rachel's voice rose, playing to the crowd like an actress on stage. I believe Megan is owed $400,000. The number hung in the air like a bomb. And I think you should pay it, Megan. You're the one who's done well for yourself. You have the tech job, the big house, the investments. You can afford it. And Mom, she looked at our mother with something that might have been sympathy or might have been cruelty. Mom is on a fixed income. She can't. This is your chance to do the right thing, to help family, to show everyone here what kind of person you really are. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen, while the silence stretched like taffy. Someone coughed, a glass clinked. The string lights swayed in the breeze, casting moving shadows across all those watching faces. $400,000? For a secret I'd just learned existed? For a sacrifice I'd never agreed to make? Because I'd worked hard, saved carefully, denied myself countless things to build something stable after growing up with nothing? Rachel was watching me with that expression I remembered from childhood, the one she'd worn when she'd broken something and was waiting to see if she could pin it on me. Expectant, challenging, already crafting her narrative about what my response would mean. I looked at my mother. She was crying silently, tears tracking through her makeup, and I saw in her face the weight of 16 years of secrecy. But I also saw something else. Resignation. She expected me to crumble, to pay, to smooth this over the way I'd smoothed over every crisis, every mess, every moment of tension in our family for as long as I could remember. I was the fixer, the responsible one, the one who made things work. My hands were shaking, but when I spoke, my voice was steady. No. The words seemed to surprise even me. Rachel's smile faltered. What? No. Louder this time. I'm not giving you $400,000. I'm not giving you $400. I'm not giving you anything. Megan, I just told you. I know what you told me. I stepped around the cake, moving closer to her. You told everyone here that Mom took money from my college fund 16 years ago, that she did it without asking me, without telling me, to help you. And you're right. That was wrong. Mom made a small, wounded sound. But do you know what else is wrong? I was looking at Rachel now, really looking at her, and I was seeing things I'd spent years trying not to see. Everything about this, everything about you standing here at our mother's birthday party, ambushing me with this information in front of 50 people, and then demanding money. I'm not demanding. $400,000, Rachel. You just demanded $400,000 from me? In front of my aunts and uncles and cousins and neighbors? You tried to corner me, to use public pressure and family obligation to force me to hand over nearly half of everything I've worked for. Her face was reddening. After what was done to you, what was done to me happened when I was 13 years old. I didn't know about it. I couldn't have consented to it. But I dealt with the consequences and I built my life anyway. My voice was rising now. 16 years of swallowed frustration finally breaking free. Do you know how I did that, Rachel? Do you want to know? She didn't answer, but I kept going anyway. I worked 40 hours a week while taking a full course load. I ate ramen for dinner 4 nights a week. I wore the same 3 outfits for 2 years. I didn't go on spring break. I didn't study abroad. I didn't go to parties or football games or do any of the things people talk about when they remember college.
I survived it. And then I got a job and I worked 80-hour weeks for years to prove myself. I saved money instead of taking vacations. I drove a 15-year-old car until last year. I lived with roommates in a shitty apartment until I was 30. The crowd had gone so quiet, I could hear the fountain bubbling in the neighbor's yard. And now that I finally have something to show for all of that work, all of that sacrifice, you want me to just hand it over because of something I didn't even know about until 10 minutes ago? You were wronged. Rachel's voice had taken on a desperate edge. You deserve to be compensated. By you? The question hung between us. You're not asking me to compensate myself, Rachel. You're asking me to compensate you. This whole confession, this whole performance, it was never about making things right with me. It was about getting money.
That's not... When did you plan this? I asked suddenly. When did you decide that tonight, at Mom's 60th birthday party, with everyone watching, was the perfect time to blow up our family and demand money from me? She didn't answer, but her silence was answer enough. You needed an audience, I said quietly. You needed witnesses. You needed to make it impossible for me to say no without looking like a monster. That's what this was really about. You don't know what I've been through, Rachel whispered. You're right. I don't. I felt something hard and cold settling in my chest. Just like you don't know what I've been through. But I'm going to tell you something I learned a long time ago. Your pain doesn't entitle you to someone else's resources. Your past doesn't give you claim to my future. After everything this family, I laughed and it came out bitter. Let me tell you about this family, Rachel. About what's happened in the 16 years since Mom used my college fund to help you. I turned to face the crowd. Might as well put on my own show. When I was in college, struggling to pay rent, Rachel was dating a guy who owned 3 car dealerships. She showed up to campus once, driving a new BMW. When I asked her for a loan, just $200 to make rent, she said she couldn't because she was saving for a trip to Paris. Rachel's face had gone pale. That was 5 years ago. I found out I needed surgery. A tumor. Benign, thank God, but the insurance wouldn't cover all of it. The out-of-pocket was $20,000. I started a payment plan with the hospital. Who helped me? I looked at my Aunt Jennifer. Aunt Jenny sent me $1,000. Cousin Lisa had a fundraiser that raised $3,000 more. And Mrs. Patterson, I found our elderly neighbor in the crowd. You brought me groceries for 2 months because you knew I was barely eating while trying to pay the bills. Mrs. Patterson was crying now. So was Aunt Jenny. Rachel called me once during that time to tell me she'd just bought a vacation home in Sedona. I didn't know, Rachel started. 2 years ago, I bought my house. It's not a mansion. It's a 3-bedroom ranch that needed work. But it was mine. I was so proud, I invited the whole family for a housewarming. Rachel showed up an hour late and spent 20 minutes telling me about all the things I should change about it. Then, she asked if I'd co-sign a loan for her new business venture. That business would have failed like the 3 before it, and I would have been on the hook for the debt. I shook my head. I said no, and you didn't speak to me for 6 months. The memories kept coming, a decade and a half of them, each one a small cut I'd bandaged and ignored. Last year, you asked me to invest in your friend's cryptocurrency scheme. The year before that, you needed money for emergency dental work that turned out to be cosmetic veneers. 3 years ago, you wanted me to fund your yoga retreat in Bali because it would be healing for you. You have money and I don't. It's not fair. You're right. It's not fair. I felt something break open inside me. Something I'd kept locked away for so long I'd almost forgotten it was there. It's not fair that I had to work 3 times as hard as everyone else just to get to 0. It's not fair that I spent my 20s exhausted and broke. It's not fair that I have scars on my hands from working in restaurant kitchens and scars on my soul from being so tired I wanted to quit every single day. My voice cracked, but I pushed on. But you know what else isn't fair?
You standing here in front of everyone we know, trying to shame me into giving you money by weaponizing Mom's secret, using my pain as leverage, twisting a violation of my trust into an opportunity for your profit. Rachel's eyes were glittering with tears, but I couldn't tell if they were real or another performance. With her, I'd never been able to tell. You want to talk about what's fair? I said quietly. Let's talk about it. If Mom used $30,000 of my college fund 16 years ago, and we account for inflation and reasonable interest, that's maybe $50,000 in today's dollars. That's what I lost. That's the debt. I turned to my mother, who was watching me with an expression of such profound anguish that I almost stopped. But I'd started this truth-telling, and I needed to finish it. Mom, you should have told me. You should have asked me. What you did was wrong, and it hurt me in ways I'm only now beginning to understand. I took a breath. But I also know why you did it. You were trying to protect Rachel. You were trying to give her a chance at a normal life. You made a terrible choice in an impossible situation, and you've carried that guilt for 16 years. Mom was sobbing openly now. I'm angry about it. I'm hurt by it. And we're going to need to talk about it. Really talk about it later. But I looked back at Rachel. But I'm not going to let you use Mom's mistake to manipulate me. I'm not manipulating $400,000. I let the number sit there. You didn't ask for $50,000, which might be reasonable. You didn't ask for $100,000. You asked for $400,000. And you did it here, now, publicly, because you thought I wouldn't be able to say no. The anger I had been suppressing for years was flowing now, hot and clean. You thought I'd be so shocked, so embarrassed, so desperate to keep the peace that I'd agree to anything. You thought you could hold me hostage with family obligation and public opinion. You thought I'd sacrifice myself one more time to make things comfortable for everyone else. That's exactly what you thought. I was standing right in front of her now, because that's who I've always been to you. The responsible one, the reliable one, the one who fixes things and makes sacrifices and never complains, the one you can use. Rachel's face twisted. You're making me sound like a monster. No, I'm making you sound like someone who's been enabled to think other people's resources are yours for the taking. Someone who learned a long time ago that if you cry hard enough, or guilt hard enough, or perform hard enough, someone will rescue you. I looked around at the frozen party, at all these people who'd watched our family dynamics play out for decades. I'm done being that someone. The words felt like stepping off a cliff. You want $400,000? Get a job. Build something. Work for it the way I did. I picked up my purse from the patio table. But you're not getting it from me. Not today. Not ever. Megan, wait! Mom reached for me, but I stepped back. I need some space, Mom, from both of you. I'll call you tomorrow and we'll figure out how to deal with the college fund thing. But right now, I looked at the ruins of the party, the cake with its uncut layers, the guests who'd witnessed everything. Right now, I need to leave. You're going to abandon Mom on her birthday? Rachel's voice was shrill now, desperate. After you just ruined it. I finished. Yeah, Rachel, I am. Because you know what? I spent 3 months planning this party. I spent thousands of dollars on it. I spent hours making everything perfect, and you destroyed it in 5 minutes because you wanted money. I looked at my mother one more time. I love you, Mom. I hope you know that, but I can't stay here right now. As I walked toward the gate, I heard Rachel's voice behind me, pitched to Carrie. She's just going to abandon us after everything we've sacrificed for her. I stopped. Turned around one last time. Sacrificed? You sacrificed nothing for me, Rachel. Mom made a choice that affected me without asking me. That's not a sacrifice I made. It's a sacrifice that was made of me. There's a difference. Semantics, she spat. No. Truth. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw clearly for the first time what I'd been avoiding seeing for years. You're my sister, and part of me will always love you. But I don't like you very much. And I'm done pretending that's my fault. The gasps from the crowd were audible now, but I didn't care anymore. I'm done shrinking myself to make you feel bigger. I'm done apologizing for my success while you wallow in your failures. I'm done being your emergency fund and your emotional punching bag and your excuse for why your life hasn't worked out the way you wanted. You're being cruel, Rachel whispered. I'm being honest. For the first time in maybe forever. I hitched my purse higher on my shoulder. And if that feels cruel to you, maybe that says more about what you've gotten used to than it does about me. I started walking again. But then Uncle Tom spoke up, his voice cutting through the tension. Megan's right. I stopped, surprised. Uncle Tom had always been one of Rachel's biggest defenders. She's right. He repeated, louder now. Rachel, what you did tonight was wrong. Demanding money like that, in front of everyone, that's not how family works. But Rachel gestured helplessly in my direction. She worked her ass off, Aunt Jenny cut in, standing up. We all watched her do it. And you? She shook her head at Rachel. You've been asking for handouts since you were 16 years old. That's not fair. Rachel looked around wildly, seeking allies. Mom, tell them. But Mom was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Grief maybe, or recognition, or both. She's right, Mom said quietly. Megan's right. About all of it. Rachel's face crumpled. Mom, you can't. I should have told you, Mom said to me, ignoring Rachel. 16 years ago, I should have sat you down and explained what was happening and asked what you wanted to do. You were young, but you deserved to know. You deserved a choice. The admission nearly broke me. And I should have stopped enabling Rachel a long time ago. Mom's voice was stronger now. Every time she asked for money, every time she had a new crisis, I convinced myself I was helping, but I wasn't. I was teaching her that she didn't have to take responsibility, that someone would always clean up her messes. I can't believe you're all turning on me. Rachel's voice had risen to a shriek. I'm the victim here. No, Cousin Lisa said, standing up now too. You were a victim. 16 years ago, you were a scared teenager in a terrible situation. But you're not that person anymore. You're a grown woman who just tried to extort your sister. I wasn't extorting. What would you call it? Lisa's voice was sharp. Publicly demanding $400,000 isn't extortion? Rachel looked around the yard, and I could see the moment she realized she'd lost the crowd. No one was meeting her eyes. Several people were actively moving away from her. You're all going to regret this, she said, her voice venomous now that the performance had failed. When I tell people what really happened here? What really happened, I said quietly, is that you tried to manipulate me and it didn't work. Tell whoever you want. I'm not ashamed of anything I did tonight. I looked at the assembled guests one more time. I'm sorry you all had to see this. This wasn't what I wanted for Mom's birthday. But I managed a small smile. I hope you'll stay and have cake. It's from Magnolia's, her favorite. Don't let it go to waste. As I walked through the gate, I heard Mom's voice behind me. Megan, wait. I turned. She was following me, leaving Rachel standing alone by the cake. I'm so sorry, she said when she reached me. Her face was streaked with tears and mascara. For all of it, for taking your money without asking, for putting Rachel's needs above yours for so many years, for not seeing what it was doing to you. I wanted to be angry. Part of me was angry, but looking at my mother, this woman who'd worked herself to exhaustion to raise us, who'd made a terrible choice in an impossible moment, I couldn't hold on to the rage. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Even later, when I was older, why didn't you explain? She looked down at her hands. Because I was ashamed. Because I knew what I'd done was wrong, and I thought if I could just make it up to you somehow, if I could just help you in other ways, maybe it would balance out. She laughed, but it came out as a sob. But you never needed help. You just did everything yourself. You were so strong, so capable. And Rachel always needed something. So you kept choosing her? I kept enabling her. There's a difference. Mom reached for my hand. "Can you forgive me? Someday?" I squeezed her fingers. "I don't know yet. I need time to process this. But, but I believe you were trying to do the right thing. You just did it in a really wrong way. That's more grace than I deserve. Maybe." I let go of her hand. "But I'm not giving you that grace for you. I'm giving it to me. Because holding on to this anger, letting it poison me, that would be letting Rachel win. That would be letting this moment define the rest of my life." Mom nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I need space," I said again. "Maybe a few weeks, maybe longer. But I'm not disappearing forever. We'll figure this out." She wiped her eyes. "What should I do about the party?" I looked back at the yard, where guests were awkwardly starting to move again, some approaching the cake, others gathering their things to leave.
"Whatever you want. It's your birthday." I managed to smile. For what it's worth, before Rachel's announcement, it was pretty perfect.
"It was," Mom agreed. "Thank you for that."
I hugged her then, quickly, and walked to my car before I could change my mind. As I drove away, I saw Rachel through the rear view, standing alone by the cake, her phone pressed to her ear, already calling someone, already spinning her version of events, already trying to find someone who would tell her she was right. I felt a wave of sadness for her. Not pity, I was done with pity, but sadness for what she could have been if she'd ever learned to stand on her own. Sadness for the relationship we might have had if she'd ever seen me as something other than a resource to exploit. But mostly, I felt something lighter, something that had been missing for so long I had forgotten what it felt like. I felt free. My phone started buzzing before I even made it to the highway, text after text coming in. I glanced at them at a red light. From Aunt Jenny. "So proud of you. That took real courage." From Uncle Tom. "About damn time someone said what needed to be said." From Cousin Lisa. "You're my hero. Call me when you're ready." And then, surprisingly, from Mrs. Patterson. "I saved you a piece of cake. Come by tomorrow." I smiled despite everything and drove home. My house was dark when I arrived, quiet in a way that would have felt lonely an hour ago, but now felt peaceful. I kicked off my heels, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat on my back porch, looking out at the garden I had spent 2 years cultivating. My phone buzzed again. Rachel this time. "You ruined everything." Apologized. I would have tried to smooth it over, to make peace, to fix it. Instead, I blocked her number. Then I opened my banking app and looked at my account balance. All those years of work, of sacrifice, of careful saving and investing. It was mine. I'd earned it. And I wasn't going to apologize for that anymore. I thought about Rachel's demand. $400,000. For what? For a secret she'd kept? For a choice Mom had made? For a childhood that neither of us had asked for, but both of us had lived through. The truth was, we'd both been damaged by our circumstances. Rachel by whatever happened when she was 16, by the weight of a secret carried too long, by the patterns of dependency she'd fallen into. Me by the responsibilities thrust upon me too young, by the sacrifices made without my consent, by the habit of putting everyone else's needs before my own. But there was a crucial difference. I'd done the work to heal, to build, to become someone who could say no. Rachel was still waiting for someone else to save her. I finished my wine and went inside. In the morning, I would call my therapist and book an emergency session. I would call my mother in a few days and begin the hard work of rebuilding our relationship on honest ground. I would reach out to the family members who'd supported me tonight and thank them. But Rachel I was done with. Not out of cruelty, but out of self-preservation. You can't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. And that's all I've been doing for years. As I got ready for bed, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. I looked tired. I looked older than my 35 years. But I also looked, for the first time in a long time, like someone who knew her own worth. My phone buzzed one more time. An unknown number. Rachel calling from a friend's phone, probably.
I turned it off completely and went to sleep. In the morning, I would deal with the fallout. In the morning, I would face the reality of a fractured family and a sister who would probably never forgive me. In the morning, I would begin the hard work of healing from wounds both old and new. But tonight, I slept. And for the first time in 16 years, I slept well. The thing about standing up for yourself is that it doesn't feel triumphant in the moment. It feels scary and sad, and like you're breaking something that can never be fixed. But sometimes things need to be broken. Sometimes the only way forward is through the wreckage of what no longer serves you. I learned that night that I'd spent most of my life trying to be small enough, accommodating enough, useful enough to deserve love. And the truth that took me 35 years to learn, is that love shouldn't require that kind of payment. Real love doesn't demand your silence. It doesn't ask you to sacrifice your boundaries. It doesn't try to corner you in front of a crowd and shame you into compliance. Real love sees you struggling and asks how to help, not how to benefit from your struggle. I don't know what happened at the rest of Mom's party. I don't know if Rachel left or stayed, if people ate the cake or went home early, if the string lights kept glowing after I drove away. What I do know is this. I woke up the next morning in my own house, in my own bed, with my own money in my own account. And nobody could take that from me without my consent. Not anymore. Never again.